evening. This is a meeting of the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee of the City of Jacksonville, and due to a lack of quorum, this is just going to be an informational meeting. And Deanna Trouble from the City of Jacksonville is going to update us on the city's capital improvement plan.
Thank you and good evening. Actually, tonight it's going to be myself and Wally Hansen. He's going to be helping throughout the presentation to kind of give us a more holistic approach to some of these projects. So tonight we're going to kind of briefly discuss again what the capital improvement plan is. We are going to talk about some new projects that we've added as a result of DOT's work and the potential impact it will have on the city utilities, as well as talk about some ongoing programs. And then we're going to spend most of our time focusing on FY19 projects, which again, those are the new year that with the new funding, and then also talk about some added new future projects that are part of the new CIP. So what is a CIP? And that stands for Capital Improvement Plan. These are major non-reoccurring investments that exceed $50,000 in cost and require at least 12 months to complete with a useful life of greater than 5 years. The Capital Improvement Plan helps us do financial planning. It shows us estimated expenditure amounts as well as identifies probable financing sources, and also provides accountability. So it evaluates, prioritizes, and schedules projects, and it communicates to the public and to us our ongoing and long-term projects. So you might notice in the CIP, some things have changed. And one of those is that we've expanded our planning years from 5 to 10 years. And that is primarily a result of new general statute regarding system development fees.
And with that, I want to share to the group that the system development fee analysis that I gave you an update on last month is out for advertisement on the city's webpage. So as of Tuesday, we are looking for public comment on the system development fees. And it's available on our website. There's actually a link right there on the main page. And we put an advertisement in the newspaper with a link to the capital improvement plan. If somebody needs it in hard copy format, they can come to the city clerk's office in CMO and get a copy. The one thing I'd like to reiterate is that the system development fees are those one-time fees paid when somebody builds a house or a commercial property and ties into our system. It is not the reoccurring monthly bills that our ratepayers pay. So I want to make sure everybody understands that, especially for the viewing public. So that's open for a period of 45 days through about the middle of April.
Is there going to be time to get that as a note on the city's water bills?
I do not know.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
And then another new thing is we've added some additional classification labels. These are the descriptors. So in the past, you might see improvement, rehabilitation. We've added enhancement, new growth, et cetera. Again, tying that back to the system development fees. So it kind of shows the public what projects are specifically related to that future growth. And then we've also added a new division to highlight the impact that NCDOT will have on the city's infrastructure, primarily resulting in financial impact. And then we also changed the descriptor from sidewalk to pedestrian improvements. That way it conveys that we're not only installing sidewalks, but we're also looking at trails, curb ramps, et cetera.
Would that include bike lanes?
It could potentially, yes. The bike lanes, if we do them, will either be part of sidewalk or street rehabilitation. Either way, they're both funded with Powell bill funding.
Okay, thank you.
And so just as a kind of review, our wastewater system components comprised of two items. We have the collection system, which is in the blue, and that consists of all of our pump stations, our force mains, sewer, et cetera, and all of that is then conveyed over to the green area, which is our land treatment site. All right, so let's talk about some impact to the utility projects. And so one thing I think it's important to note is the projects that we're going to talk about, these projects are based off of the needs that DOT and our MPO have identified, or our Metropolitan Planning Organization has identified as needs for the city. And that's just not the city, but it's the county as well. It's how do we get our citizens to, throughout the city and through the city more effectively. And so the projects that we're going to talk about are projects that are fully funded with DOT, and they're all at various stages. So the estimates that we have are based off of, about 25% design. So we have an idea of where they're going, but we really don't know the true financial impact that it's going to have on the city. So the estimates are just that, they're estimates. And as we refine the projects, we'll actually take it back before council and with a refined cost. Usually it's with a utility agreement. The utility agreement is actually that as a result of the bid cost. And so that way we'll have a much better idea of what the true impact is. So as we go through some of these projects, the projects will all vary. We'll get to one that will be very large. And again, I just want everyone to be mindful that this is at a very early stage through the project. So this is Western and Gateway North. DOT plans on adding additional turn lanes, obviously to help the traffic flow through this intersection. This right now is under right-of-way acquisition, which started this year. Construction's estimated to start in 2019. And we do have utilities at this intersection. We've estimated that potential impact about $167,000.
And as we're moving through the DOT impact on our utilities, I think it's important to note that in many cases, we're having to adjust, not really replace, but adjust utilities that we would not touch otherwise. So this is in addition to, any projects that we may need to do for, our ongoing programs or maintenance or anything like that. So, and unfortunately, this is an outside pressure that we will have to do. So it could cause future impact on those projects.
And so what we try to do is, it's easy for us if we can install our utilities within the existing DOT right-of-way, which helps us because we don't have to go out and secure an easement. Unfortunately, it is just that we are within their right-of-way. However, if we can find where we have installed the infrastructure within an easement or one where there's prior rights where we were there before DOT actually accepted the road, then it's a cost that we would not have to incur. So it's actual additional staff time in reviewing the plans as well as doing all the deed research to find that so we can, again, minimize the impact that we'll have for the city. Another project is the Gum Branch widening, and they are proposing to expand Gum Branch. I think it's from 2 lanes to 3 lanes, perhaps. It's from Summersill all the way out to just outside of the limits of Richlands. Again, that right-of-way started in 17, construction in 19, and right now we're estimating about $108,000. And so again, these are just rough estimates at this point for this construction. And the DOT's schedule for right-of-way acquisition and construction is ever-changing. And so some projects are being accelerated while other projects are being pushed out a little bit. Oh, so this one is 4 lanes. It'll be 4 lanes, from 2 to 4 lanes. Thank you.
So it's a 4-lane, not 3-lane?
Yeah. And if anyone has any additional questions or comments or concerns about any of these DOT projects, I believe our MPO has this information on the city's webpage, or you can go to DOT's website and get some more information on each of the specific projects. The next project is Western and Gum Branch. Again, their focus is on mainly on Western Boulevard right now. And you can see how we're substantially changing the configuration at this intersection. I believe they're also extending the turn lane as seen in yellow. Again, they're looking at potential construction this year in roughly an impact about $162,000. Marina and Gum Branch. This is going to be great because it's going to be adding double turn lanes on Marine Boulevard. We do have some infrastructure that will be impacted. We are looking at construction in 2020. Again, potential impact about $216,000. Now, this is the big one. Right now, again, this is at 25% design. This is the US 258 Super Street. This is the Super Street concept is what you see on the bypass and at Piney Green, where you have a median down the center lane and then turn lanes for U-turns, the big bulb outs. So this is from a realignment of this entire intersection as well as the Super Street going all the way down to Pony Farm. And we do have infrastructure out there. And all we've done at this point, for you to understand a little bit better what we do, is they have a line on a map. and they said, this is where the road's gonna be. And then we have a line in GIS that says, here's where our utility is. And anywhere they conflict is when we say there's a potential problem. But we don't know what the depth looks like, what the profile is. And so at this point, what we're trying to do is show council worst-case scenario, or we're hoping worst-case scenario, so we can come back later and said, we thought it was 2.8, but hopefully it's only going to be, I don't know, pick a number, 500,000. So, again, we go through all of doing the deed research. We are working with DOT to help minimize some of these conflicts. So all of this is just a work in progress as we go forward through the entire design process.
What's the pink showing?
That's power line.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have a question with Paul Landing Baptist Church. They don't have a whole lot of land in front of them to begin with.
They don't.
Nope.
I don't know what'll happen there.
Yeah,
You
I
have
don't
to-
know.
We'll have to talk to DOT to find out.
I mean, it's
But
almost,
you're right, it's close.
it's almost right on top of them right now.
Sometimes won't they take it all from one side if there's more vacant land there?
They have done that, yes. So again, this is, and DOT does have several public meetings on all, and they've got, I think it's, is it all different percents they have public comment?
Yeah.
So if anyone who's listening or who is interested in a project, all you have to do is find out, plug in with DOT through their website or call their office, and they can identify when those public meetings are scheduled. And then we've got the last impact as of now is the Commerce Drive extension, and that's extending the existing Commerce Drive all the way to Piney Green. And so with that extension is the DOT is having to procure some land, and right now they're doing that, and then construction is scheduled in 2020. And we're looking at the potential impact for relocating utilities at $453,000. But again, this is still rough concept. I know staff has looked at it, but I'm not quite sure how valid these numbers are. This was, again, looking at potential impact, looking at DOT's estimator for a particular line size and linear foot, and just plugging in a number. So as we go through this, it'll be refined. Again, the whole point of the CIP is to have, it's a planning document to show the, potential impact that some of these projects will have. And this is just the start. These were only 5 or 6 of the most pressing DOT projects. There's another, I think, 8 projects that we haven't even estimated yet because they're a little farther out.
Can I ask you to go back
Mhm.
one? On our sheet, it says US 258 Super Street, Pony Farm to Burga Highway, so Highway 53.
Yes.
So it doesn't show
Goes, yeah, it's
that-
from here all the way down to that intersection.
So to be able to see the impact, so widening further down, or it's not widening more because it's already pretty,
Well, it's creating the super street. So right now, you have a center turn lane,
right?
and that's going to be no more. That'll be a median, when they'll have bulb outs for you to do the U-turn. So just like you have on the Jacksonville bypass,
Okay.
that's what a super street is. So because of there's so many accidents that are occurring, that's why they're putting in the super street.
Okay.
So yeah, this is only highlighting right at this intersection at
Pony Farm.
Pony Farm. But yes, you are correct. It goes all the way. The real big impact, if you haven't seen that project, you need to look at that project. That one's
And it shows the proposed locations of those turns and
yeah.
bump outs.
And we can get those plans. I think did we just get those? I think we just got 25% plans. They're, again, rough concepts. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then moving on, let's talk about some ongoing projects. And some of these you have seen, and the well rehabilitation projects. So last CIP, we identified kind of an ongoing projects a reoccurring project to address our well sites. And so we set the budget up that it would be every other year or every 2 years. And so this is just an expansion where we've taking it out, up to the end of this CIP process. And each year, or each of these projects, we've estimated at about $250,000. And so Joe has identified kind of the need, and if the need changes, then we can just switch out whatever well we're working on. So again, this is just one of our ongoing projects.
Before we leave that one, and these are rehabbing wells that some were built in the 60s, many in the 70s, So this won't be a continuing project
True.
forever. It'll be until we rehab those older sites. And then most of our Castle Hayne wells were built in the early to mid 2000s. So at some point, we'll come back and we'll have to face a similar program for those, but that'll be in the future.
When you rehab one of those wells, what do you expect its life to be after the rehab in years?
Well, I mean, we got
50-year-old
40,
ones
50
now.
years
Yeah.
out of those. So probably not that long, but, and in some cases, it may be, in working with the state, one of the later projects or projects that you have is the Black Creek Well Project. So, I don't want to get too far into that one because we'll talk about it, but, it may be that one or two of these go away and we look at relocating projects.
New
for
wells.
New wells as part of an agreement with the state for the Black Creek Aquifer withdrawal.
Okay.
And I'd like to plug for anybody who missed last month's meeting that presentation by Dr. Richard Spruill is available on the website.
Yes, ma'am.
So anybody interested in our aquifer system should tune into that.
Yes, ma'am.
And another ongoing project, which you're very familiar with, is our inflow and infiltration projects. And again, the purpose of these is to reduce the infiltration of groundwater and to reduce the inflow of stormwater. And this is our ongoing projects where we spend the first year in design, followed by next year in construction. These projects normally result in identifying infrastructure that we can line, and sometimes there might be some point repairs, but we are focusing on more of lining. It is, we can do more with less money, and it's a less impact on our citizens, because we don't have to open cut the trench. We can just pull the liner from manhole to manhole.
Have you had any issues with that since you've been doing that, the lining system?
The only issue that may occur is if they forget to cut somebody's service connection out.
Yeah,
But
We
that's
know that
very
pretty fast.
doable.
yeah.
I bet you do.
We have had one or two that have flattened out that they've had to go in and cut out and redo that section, but that's infrequent.
About how much distance-wise, I mean, if you have any idea on miles of pipe, feet of pipe, whatever, that you've covered over the last couple of years, 'cause I know you keep reporting on doing these I&I projects.
How much liner have you bought?
A bunch.
No, we've been doing these projects since 2007. And we've done 4 major projects, with one of those having three sub-projects. So we put out a lot, I just don't know what the number is. We can certainly figure it out and report back.
And are these usually in areas that you've already smoke tested or not smoke tested?
We've typically, we may have smoke tested them, we've typically looked at them through television, examination. We like to have had some flow monitoring to have been done so that it gives us an idea where to go, looking for the worst places, and then, start televisioning that area, looking for where the problems exist.
I like that you mentioned using the cameras in the pipes. Out of curiosity, have you ever considered putting any of that footage of this is a good pipe and this is a really bad pipe on the Jacksonville website so citizens can look to see what exactly goes into that? It'd be kind of
I'm not sure.
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever done a informational session on that.
We can look.
Thank you.
Another ongoing project is just our continuation of the water sewer rehab projects. And this is an ongoing process to replace aging infrastructure. We coordinate this a lot with our street rehabilitation projects. So as a street is identified for resurfacing, we also go in and evaluate the infrastructure. And so with that, we try to identify if there is a sewer line that needs to be rehabbed, then there's a possibility that we can use I&I funds for that rather than our sewer fund. They're two different funding sources. But the purpose of these type of rehab projects is to flatline our expenditures. So similar to the well rehab project, that we would just identify a certain cost per year. And then as streets are identified or as projects are identified for aging infrastructure, we already have a budget that we can go to make those repairs happen. And then we try to focus on those areas that might have a high demand for service calls, for like point repairs, or, and we can normally tell by our work order tickets. So that's kind of the areas that we focus on as well. All right, so moving on to the projects that are identified for this funding year. So one of the projects that we're looking at is the Bryn Mawr force main relocation. And we hope that you had the opportunity to view Greg Mashaw's presentation that he gave this past Tuesday. He briefed council on some of the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead as the city continues to grow. And part of that was the challenges that were faced with storage capacity at the land treatment site, as well as capacity within our collection system. And as a result, one project that staff identified was the relocation of the Bryn Mawr force main. And this is found on page 26.
Can I interrupt you? Thank you. Tell us the page number, would you please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
We're flipping a lot
Because
over
we'll
here.
sit here and flip and not hear what you're saying.
Nope, no, this is on page 26.
Thank you.
These will go a little bit more systematic than the other ones that we were doing.
Great,
So,
thank you very much.
On page 26. So this project, the Bryn Mawr force main relocation, was one of the items that staff had identified as something to start looking at. And so as a result, we've identified it to begin in FY19. And to begin means that we go through the planning phase. So through this, we would identify and study alternatives and also conduct a cost-benefit analysis. If all of that goes well, then we would proceed on to engineering. So what is the Bryn Mawr force main relocation? So right now, the advantages that we see with this potential project is the ability to redirect a little over 1 million gallons of discharge. And that represents about 25% of our collection system. So the advantages is that we can move this flow to the Marine Corps Base treatment facility. So you might be aware or unaware that their treatment facility is mainly industrial, and they need more of residential discharge to kind of help all the chemicals work well on the treatment side. And so they seem to be open to taking additional capacity, and that also helps us reduce the immediate need for some of our future improvements. So what does it look like? So it looks like one option is what we're calling the Poplar Branch alternative, and that is taking the Bryn Mawr force main, rerouting it to Poplar Branch, where we have an existing sewer line. It was with regards to when we constructed Piney Green, we put in the sewer line, which already discharges to the base. So that's one option. The second option is that we redirect Bryn Mawr down towards NT24 and then to the Marine Corps Base. And again, both of these options are still, they're conceptual. There's a lot of work that needs to happen to even evaluate both of these options. And so our goal or our hope is that in the beginning of next fiscal year, we can start this, looking at this alternative. And again, this will help us to start to look at the challenges and opportunities that we have with the storage capacity at the land treatment site, as well as capacity within our collection system. So now we're moving to New Bridge Street infrastructure, and this is found on page 12. So one project that we've been working on is New Bridge Street infrastructure and Streetscape project. And so this project is looking at rehabbing 4 blocks on New Bridge Street from Warlick down to the Freedom Fountain. And so we have had to do a lot of work up to this point. And so far, we have conducted water and sewer evaluations. We've done a topographic survey. We've done a stormwater evaluation. And right now, we're hoping to start design and construction in FY19. So what did we find on the sewer system? So after we cambered the lines, we found that the lines were structurally sound, but we did have some leaking joints. And so there was one single point repair, meaning that we couldn't line this one area because the line had collapsed. And then we're actually going to do that point repair now. So that'll be going out for advertisement here in the next couple of months. but we can line the rest of the sewer, which means we don't have to do it right now. We can wait to do this. And so overall, this is great news, because that means we don't have to do anything with the sewer side. On the water side, we found that the existing lines are old. We do have a history of maintenance. We've got leaking valves, and the water lines are located within the travel lanes. And so as a result, we've determined that all the lines need to be repaired. And we also want to either move or add hydrants into the bulb out area with the new Streetscape Concept. So overall, bad news, because we're going to have to replace all the water lines. So this is the concept. This is actually right in front of Boomtown in the organic market in Johnson Boulevard on New Bridge. This is the new sidewalk pattern. And you'll see that what's different between this side that we've done and the other existing is that we've got a sidewalk now that meets ADA standards. And so we've made up for the difference in elevation between the existing sidewalk and the back of curb with our brick utility strip. And so the concept is that as we add the street lighting, et cetera, everything would be done within that utility strip. So here is the concept of the streetscape. And so as you can see, we're adding crosswalks and bulb outs. We've had a center turn lane that's divided, so it's got some landscaping and some where it's just hatched mark. And that hatched mark will allow for temporary deliveries or UPS, et cetera. We are going from a 4-lane to a 2-lane. The angled parking still stays. And again, this is conceptual. This was just a kind of a rendering of what we're hoping that it will look like.
There was some talk about them burying the utilities there too.
We are in the process of undergrounding all the utilities.
Get rid of the poles.
Yep, and getting rid of the poles, and we're looking at putting up some street lighting as well, maybe mimicking what we have currently in front of City Hall. So it's a very big project. It's more than just the infrastructure. But when we started looking at this project several years ago, we felt the need that you can't just do the streetscape portion. You've got to look at it as a holistic project, because we knew the infrastructure needed to be identified. And so that's kind of where we're starting.
And before we leave that,
Oh.
Mr. Nichols not here, so I'll go ahead and answer his question that I did anticipate. The water and sewer would be responsible for paying for water and sewer
Yes.
improvements, not sidewalk improvements or street paving
Nice
or.
street lights and all,
Yeah, street lights or undergrounding
Yep,
and
thank
power
you.
lines or anything like that. So I want to make sure that we've answered Mr. Nichols' comment, even though he wasn't able to attend tonight.
So if you look at the project itself, to Wally's point, I believe there's like 4 or 5 different funding sources. And so as we present this CIP to council, that'll be one additional thing we'll be looking at, is what is the potential impact to all of the different funding sources, and do we need to make any additional changes? So that'll be something, so for some further discussion.
Could you mention what the Powell bill is?
So Powell bill funding is funding that we get from the state through the gas tax that pays for any improvements to the street itself, so street paving, any of your sidewalks, trails, anything that's within the right-of-way. So there's very specific projects that we can use Powell bill funding for. And so you'll see that there's a pretty high cost associated with this particular project, and that's a result of all of the sidewalk. The sidewalk cost that we got for the small portion of the project was very high. And so we're hoping that as a larger project, that price will come down substantially and that cost won't be as high.
And I want to add to Deanna's comment, Powell bill has specific funding requirements.
Yeah.
I mean, there are specific things you can and cannot use it for. And just because you can use it to repave a street, one thing that they specifically say is you can't go replace the utilities and, replace water or sewer line for a street and then repave it using Powell bill funds, because you're repaving it because of utility work. So you can only use Powell bill funds specifically for repaving streets that don't have utility problems.
Correct.
So,
Is it something that you have to provide a match for, or is the match part of the rest of the project?
no, it is a set amount that we receive from the state, and there's a formula for that.
Okay, thank you.
And so the CIP is budgeted on what our estimates are. And so, and you'll see that when you combine the Powell bill estimate for Newbridge Street, plus our annual appropriation for streets and sidewalks, we're exceeding our estimated yearly costs, which is why we have to do some analysis to see what projects might need to be shifted around, or if we anticipate that we might be getting more Powell bill or less Powell bill, what impact does that have on these projects? And so that'll be something that, like I said, we'll be having that discussion with finance and bringing back to council. So some of these projects might change as a result of those discussions. The next project is Decatur Lift Station, and that's found on page 18. So the goal of this project is the hope and desire to abandon Decatur Lift Station. So Decatur Lift Station is off of Decatur Road, kind of in the back of Brookview Drive. So the station itself, if we can eliminate it, saves us costs in the long run with our operation and maintenance costs. So if we're able to abandon it, we would like to install a new 15-inch sanitary sewer, about 1,700 linear feet, that's in the back of the Royal Bluff subdivision that connects to the existing Brookview outfall. If, though, through analysis, we've determined that we can't abandon Decatur, then we're going to go in and create a larger wet well. So for some additional holding capacity, we'll probably end up evaluating the station itself to see if the pumps need to be new pumps, new electrical, et cetera. So at this point, this was a project that we identified as a potential good thing if we can abandon the lift station. And so this current year, in 19, we'll be looking at those options. And we, as it's stated, we're going to look at the cost-benefit analysis to see which is the most advantageous for us.
It's the one that floods.
Now, this is the one that's right near a stream, and Pete has very little response time. So if it goes high, we have to respond very quickly.
Okay.
I think it
And
was like a
the wet well
15-minute.
is small.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Is that also in that area that the lines are really flat so that you've had some issues with them before? Greg, I think you were saying you were having to make some lines bigger because you had 12s and 12s with 8s in between or something weird like that, and they were very, very horizontal.
I don't think this is,
That's not that
It's
area?
above, I think it's upstream of this one.
Okay.
This is the one where you went in and put all them joints on to hold the lines. Is that the one?
No.
No, that was
That's
Brookview.
Brookview,
Yeah.
okay.
Decatur feeds to Brookview.
Yes.
Right.
That's right.
You can tell we pay attention. There's a lot going on in that area.
That's right.
All right, moving along to Holiday City Mobile Home Lift Station, that's on page 20. So the goal of this project has initially started with, we wanted to increase the size of the wet well. And then also while we were there, we really need to identify a resolution to reduce the inflow and infiltration in this area. So you may or may not recall, but the Holiday City Mobile Home Park, everything that's shaded is actually a private system that drains into our pump station. They do have high I&I, and so as a result, we did conduct a preliminary engineering report. The city hired an engineer, and we came up with, okay, what if we just abandon their private system and we put in a new public system, whereby the owners of mobile home of Holiday City will then just pay back the city a reimbursement. So that report came in. The estimated cost of the project was $6.5 million. The owners decided that they were going to pursue their own inflow and infiltration program. And so as a result, the city is back to the original concept where we're going to increase the size of the wet well and move forward with that project. And the city manager and the owners of Holiday City Mobile Home Park are continuing conversations on how to recapture some of that cost as a result of the I&I.
Does that lift station feed the Bryn Mawr lift station?
does.
Which would then be going to the Marine Corps base?
Does this lift station service anything other than Holiday City?
Oh, small
Small.
area, it does.
And
The green
how many
area.
units are at Holiday City?
100 and,
They have an
14?
agreement, and I
Yeah.
don't remember the exact number, but they have an agreement as part of their planned development that they can go up to a certain number. Do you remember? It's 170.
So you're looking at 6.5 million for 170 units?
We can, it's more than that. We'll get you the number. we'll follow back up with the number of units that they can have per their agreement.
That's still a lot at $6.5 million, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
Well,
per
that's why
unit?
the cost was not feasible, just to go in and replace the entire.
These are mobile homes, right?
yes.
Yes.
What makes it difficult is their existing infrastructure is within, it's under the existing homes. And so
Yes.
you'd have to move the homes if you wanted to redo the existing lines. And so the preliminary engineering report had the lines going in the road, and then you have to make connections to all of the mobile homes. And so, but yes, so we have decided we're going back to the original project, and so we're going to start working on this project in FY19.
And again, the real challenge is the I&I. And Greg can, I think, maybe nail down the specific number, but from what I recall, the I&I for that area is something like 20-some times.
Yes, it's very
Under
high,
wet weather.
very high multiple whenever it rains. It's like 25 times, normal dry weather flow. And
So
it's,
even not at a lot of units, 25 times the normal flow.
Is a lot.
It's all
It's a
those,
lot.
it's all those old pipes, yeah. You're
Yes,
getting it all
and-
in the system.
yeah, it's,
It's giving Greg a headache, I can see. Oh, gee.
well, it's indicative of mobile home parks.
Oh, yeah.
What I find, I've, worked in the consulting field, and I'll never forget one time, a mobile home park for a small town that I smoked, and, we smoked the place, and smoke was coming up from everywhere. And a lot of times what happened is, not saying that it happens here, but in places, when they yank out a mobile home, there's that service line that just sort of disappears, and then it's a while before the next mobile home comes in. So what do? They do a new service line. Meanwhile, there's this old service line laying underneath the ground that's just a hole
People have forgotten about.
they've forgotten about. And I remember walking through this neighborhood. A mobile home had just recently been pulled out of there, and so its footprint was like a basin, and right in the middle of it was a hole where there was the old, service line that went up to the mobile home. So, but they also have sort of a mishmash of pipe that serves as their collection system. There's HDPE, I think there's a little bit of PVC, and I think there may even be some clay out there. So it's sort of needs a little bit of work.
But you said the owners want to take responsibility.
Yes, the owner-
Get that fixed.
Yes, the owners are. As a matter of fact, they just recently communicated with the city manager that they have engaged the services of a consulting firm to start doing an assessment of their sewer. So they are being proactive. And it's new ownership. So this company that's stepped in and purchased this mobile home complex wants to do something about it.
Is there any repercussions if they don't?
All I can tell you is that the manager has talked a little bit about a special rate due to the excessive I&I. We've not gotten any further than just talking about it.
And Dr. Woodruff let me know that it's 360 units.
That's a bunch of units. It really is.
Right, the next project is US 17 North Drummer Kellum Water and Sewer Project, and that's on page 34. This is actually a carryover from last fiscal year. So this is an extension of water and sewer along US 17 North to near Drummer Kellum Road. And this is actually to serve a planned commercial subdivision. But it's developer driven, and so we're kind of waiting for the developer to say he's ready. And so when he's ready, we're ready to provide some services. And so what we've done is the expenditures are actually to be set off by a service area assessment, which we've already identified this area. So we'll recoup the cost. So the city will front load the cost, and as development comes in, they pay a sewer area assessment fee for that area in addition to the system development fees.
This area is currently outside the city of Jacksonville, so is it going to be annexed in?
They would have
Yeah,
to
they have
annex.
to.
Okay.
It's actually right across from North Marine Town Center.
Okay.
It's where?
Right across from North Marine Town Center, the new, there's a new gas station.
That big gas
and the
station right at the
Stevenson
corner of
Toyota.
Vine and
It's
Green and
actually
17.
closer to the Stevenson Toyota dealership, across 17.
This wouldn't be a spot annexation, it would be an adjoining one?
They would, the road would count, the right-of-way for the roadway, and it is across from North Marine Town Center.
But would it be,
So it would not be,
off all by itself from everything else on its side of the road?
yes, that would be the only area, and it would be a commercial development.
It would actually annex everything from where you go into north side to Drummer Kellum Road?
No, it would just be the
Just the right of
parcels
way.
involved in the development. So we cannot go out and force annexation anymore, so it's not that we would be going into that area and taking over existing development. It would be owner-requested annexation.
And
So
at
it'd be
that time, the
voluntary.
developer would be the only owner, correct?
That's correct.
So the only other way that could happen is if those properties in between said, well, since you're annexing them, annex us too.
Well, typically what happens is, once it starts changing over and new uses come in, they desire water and sewer connections. They may have water already, but there's no sewer in that area. So to get sewer, they would have to come to us, which is where the annexation comes in. So to receive city services, you have to request annexation.
Okay, but the city isn't going to be notifying the residents or the parcel owners in that area saying, hey, we're about to annex this at the developer's request. Do you wish to be annexed at this time?
No, we don't typically do that.
Okay.
I think they get notices because of the public hearing that happens, but it's just the standard legal notices,
The adjoining property owners?
yes.
Because the best I can remember, there's 3 houses. There's a bar and there's the old tire place before you get to Drummer Kellum.
That's right.
It's adjacent, it's like a door or two down from the bar you're talking about
Yes.
going north. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's already been annexed. It was annexed a while back.
It may have been in order for us to put the
Yes,
fee
because
in
we
place.
went,
Oh,
yeah,
true, yeah.
yeah, it's already been annexed. I'm fairly certain.
Okay. The next project is the emergency interconnection with the Marine Corps base, and that's on page 37. Again, this is a carryover from prior projects, actually for a number of years. It's been in the CIP, I think, since 2014, maybe. But this was at the request of having interconnecting our water system. So in the event that the Marine Corps base lost water, that they could get water from us and vice versa. So the Marine Corps base has done the design, that construction is pending. Actually, the cost of this project will be split between us and the Marine Corps base. We have the agreement, and we're in the process of reviewing it, and then we need to finalize it with the base. So this project might actually go to construction here this next coming fiscal year.
Which road is that right there? Is that
It's
TT?
Iwo Jima,
Iwo Jima.
It's a TT.
yeah.
Let's do that, yeah.
And then the Black Creek raw water wells, that's on page 39. And this is a kind of a carryover from last year for some planning. We didn't have to do anything last year, so we just pushed it ahead another year. And this is what Wally was mentioning earlier, is that this project is a result of the Onzo Water Resources Group, where we are trying to identify 3 locations for some new water wells. And then the transmission mains for their conveyance. But this is really dependent on the results of the state's desire for our potential last withdrawal or not withdrawal from the Black Creek aquifer. And so the project's kind of on hold as we're waiting to see what the state's determination is, and it's also in conjunction with the work that we did over at Burton Park with that monitoring well. So everything's kind of in limbo. But again, going back to what the CIP stands for, this is our planning document, and so we wanted to just make mindful that we do need to identify potentially 3 new sources of wells. What it has changed in the project is that we split this project. This was one massive project, and we split it into 2 phases. So that's different from last year's CIP. Cost is the same, we just split it into 2 phases.
And if you'll remember from Dr. Sproul's presentation last month, he has the report prepared from our monitoring wells, and I'm expecting a draft at any time, and he's planning to submit that to the state middle of this month. So, and the next phase of reduction that we would have to face is August of 2018, so August of this year. So we are getting that to the state with plenty of time for them to review.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about some new future projects. These are brand new to the CIP. The first one is the land treatment site Phase 3 aeration upgrades. So again, this is replacing some aging equipment. So this is the purchase of 5 new Blue Frogs to join the others. This is on page 25. No, we're replacing 5.
Oh, gotcha.
And then we're taking 4 of the larger horsepower aeration units, the old ones, and replacing that with 14 smaller ones, smaller horsepower units. And so because we're making such a substantial change from large horsepower to smaller horsepower, we're going to do the test pilot for 1 year to see if that change is successful. Does our treatment process still the same or better? The sludge reduction, et cetera. So this will be proposed, I think, in FY20. And then following, if that year is successful, we are now on page 27. If we're successful, then we'll go to the next phase. And then in FY23, we are proposing to replace the existing 8 aerators with more Blue Frogs in that lagoon. And so, but again, it's a test pilot program, so we'll see how the results kind of convey themselves, and we'll go from there. The next project is on page 28. This is the Poplar Branch Pump Station number 2 in Seward. Right now, the project has been identified to begin in FY26, and this project is a result of the growth that we hope to see in the Piney Green area, and similar to the Bryn Mawr force main relocation, that this project would require us to get an agreement with the base for this additional treatment. And so what is the Poplar Branch Pump Station? So we did some master planning in this area, and so right now we're looking at, you'll see at the bottom of the screen, you'll see Poplar Branch Pump Station. So affectionately, that's number 1. And then to the north is Poplar Branch Pump Station number 2. So this project would be a new pump station. The green is a new line that we're going to be installing in the Poplar Branch tributary. And then it's going to tie down to the pump station, and then that orange is a small force main that will connect to the Piney Green existing sewer line to take it all the way to the base. And so this is, again, a project that we have identified that's needed for potential growth. And as growth may or may not happen, we'll make changes accordingly for this project in either moving it up or pushing it out. We have identified a much larger plan. So as this project takes on, you'll see in outlying years and future CIPs additional projects in this area.
And before you leave that, one of the things I'd like to point out, I know that 2026 is a long ways out there, and I think the importance here is that we're master planning that area, because where that pump station is situated is part of the Patriot Park subdivision that was proposed at one time. And while that hasn't developed out yet, when it does, we want to be able to go ahead and identify where we need future facilities if we're going to continue to grow in that area. So that's part of the importance of looking at that now.
Thank you, I forgot to mention that. And so where do we go from here? So as of now, staff is looking at presenting the CIP, very similar to what we've done tonight, to them throughout the entire CIP on April the 3rd. And then after that, we'll be making adjustments to schedules as needed with regard to funding. And then our plan is to come back to the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee and seek recommendation on any changes that were discussed, et cetera. And then, as always, the CIP is adopted with the budget by June 30th of every year. And so with that, that concludes our presentation for this evening.
Thank you.
Good job.
Dean and Wally.
I think we've been inundating you with questions as you went along, so.
No, that's great.
Does anybody have
That's the easiest
any
way to do it.
final follow-up questions? None? Okay. We done, Dean? Okay.
Before you do that, I do have one announcement to make. Pete's gonna kill me for this, but, I'd be remiss not to, mention to you that Pete's is actually retiring as of March 30 of this year, so
Oh, yeah?
He didn't get permission
this
from
is,
us, though.
this will be his last, I guess, official meeting.
Yeah.
Last official meeting with this board.
Did you get
But
permission to do
Pete
that?
has been very instrumental in a lot of the things that we've accomplished over the last 10 years. You've been here 10 years?
8.5.
8.5 years, so. I would say it felt like more, but it really didn't. So, but, and I can tell you that I have learned a lot from Pete, so I want to make sure that the board is aware of that and, tell him thank you.
I
And
do say thank you, because a lot of the stuff, the I&I work and all that stuff that you've done that have helped an awful lot. And we do appreciate it. We're going to miss you.
Not as much as I am.
I bet. I bet. What are your plans?
I'm going to work for the company we bought the Blue Frogs from.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
neat. Very cool.
He's going to be a salesman.
There you go. Well, that system seems to be working really well, so
It is.
that is great. That is great. Congratulations and thank you for everything you've done. We really
I appreciate
do.
this board and Greg and Wally and Deanna and Joe and Derek, and it wasn't just me. There's a lot of people that made me successful. So I appreciate your help. And city council took a lot of risk, but it's paying off.
It is paying off.
Well, I think the citizens of Jacksonville owe you a big thank
Uh-huh.
you for all you have done. You've done a lot in your 8-year tenure.
I'm just a spoke in the wheel.
Yeah, well, you made a lot happen.
Thank you.
That spoke helps make the wheel go round.
That's right.
Since all of you brought up the Blue Frog, any updates on how it has been doing?
We have the new units in place.
But water chemistry, quality,
Everything looks
sludge?
good so far. We haven't had a whole lot of warm days. I don't know that William will say that the sludge has at least moved around. I don't know that we've really reduced it. The one train that we're really worried about is 3. It's actually the worst one out there. And they seem to think that it's going to do really well, so we'll see. But we haven't had any negative effects from water quality or chemistry, so
Okay,
we're hoping for some warm weather so we can see what's going to happen.
okay. My other question has to do with the water and sewer system report where it says 21 water service leaks and 5 TOV requests. So what's a TOV request?
TOV is a turn-off valve for the meter setter, for the meter. They get broke or they leak by, so they can't turn it off for non-payment disconnects or emergency shutoffs. So we have to go out and take it off and put a new one on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And no hydrant that required repairs. Is that one hydrant that required repairs?
No vehicles hit hydrants last month.
Oh, okay,
Much better than last month.
gotcha. Thank you.
Anything else, anybody? Okay. Everybody have a good evening, and this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.